Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is well. If you would, just start to take your seat. I'm Mike Harris, the Dean of the College. It's a pleasure to have you here. Yeah, well. Thank you very much. Yeah, that was a dramatic pause to allow you to clap for me. No, I'm just joking. Just allowing everybody to find their seats. So my job up front is pretty easy. First of all is to welcome you here. This is our 7th conference. So our keynote is John May, who I'm going to introduce in a few minutes. But I said, John, I promise you 1,000 people. No pressure. So I'm very proud to say we had 1,200 people sign up for this conference. I'll give John all the credit. So I want to offer some thank yous. The first thank you is to our students, because we asked you to show up and you're showing up. Very much appreciated. To our faculty and staff, we could not have this conference without you. There is a committee, and she is not going to like me to say her name specifically, but I'm going to say Karen Coos and Lee Brown and the rest of the committee. They deserve all the credit for making this happen. And the final group, our alums and speakers, that truly this is a chance for you to connect with our most valuable resource. That's our students. So we're very appreciative. These alums, these friends of our programs, they are here on their own dime because they care about you. They want to share stories. So thank you to all the speakers, all the alums here. We're very appreciative. So now I have some advice for our students. Are you ready? So you're at a great institution that's going to offer you a high-quality education. There is no doubt that is the reason that you're here, but that's not the only reason. Second reason is that you're here to get access to experiences. If it's clubs, study abroad, a variety of things, internships, this is one of the key experiences while you're in our college. This is a professional conference. This is a chance for you to practice the skills that you learn in our classes. Networking. In fact, I have a challenge. You ready? It's not homework, but it's a challenge. While at this conference, there's 3 concurrent sessions. While at this conference, I challenge you to get a minimum of 3 new LinkedIn connections. You think you can do it? 3's minimum. Let's go for 5, maybe 10. So if you can find me in my office in Bade and you can exceed some crazy number like 50, I'll find you something to reward you, okay? This is the chance for you to make some connections. Honestly, you may meet someone in this room today that changes your life. It's possible. So I implore you to make connections. This is not just a place that you come and you watch really smart people tell you very interesting things. And we have plenty of smart presenters who will amaze you with their stories, with their talents, with their successes. That's not the only objective here. The objective is for you to be actively involved. That means you go up and you shake hands, you make connections, you share information about yourself, and you ask questions. I want you actively involved in this process, because the third thing I always say, so you're here for a degree first. Second of all, you want experiences. But third, you have to leave ECU with a network. That is extremely important. Every alum in this room will tell you that after you graduate, you have to be connected in the Pirate network. There are individuals in this room who still interact socially and with their careers with people they met at ECU. Very, very important. Okay? So, can you get at least 3 new contacts? At least 3? More, I hope. So the other thing is, the final thing is, I have a chance to introduce our keynote. So had a conversation with John. He said, look, I really want to connect with the audience. So instead of a traditional keynote, how about if we have a fireside chat? I was like, absolutely, love the concept. So John's information up here, very, very impressive. So I said, John, I'm a little bit of a non-traditional guy, so I want to introduce you, but I want some fun facts. He sent me a lot of fun facts. But first of all, I want to tell you about John. Again, lots of information up here, but John, first of all, is a leader. John is a 7-time CEO. 7-time CEO. John is an investor. Now, you probably think an investor in the traditional sense. Absolutely. He's an investor in the traditional sense. But John finds causes, he finds people, and he invests his time, his energy, his resources. He is invested in a variety of things, from trying to help solve cancer in Chicago to the foundation at ECU. When he finds a cause, he gets involved. He invests in people. Very, very important. Third, John is a worker. So of everything I saw about John, the thing I love the most, a quote, "Make hard work your passion." And I've seen so many impressive things about John, but I love the quote, "Make hard work your passion." That sounds like an ECU thing, right? Make hard work your passion. Next, John is a winner. John likes to win. I love that about John. John's a winner. John, in the last 5 years, we've encountered some very difficult situations, right? Very challenging situations. Guess what John has done in the last 5 years along with the team at CORE? They've acquired 40 companies. They've raised over $1 billion. While we were in a pandemic, while the world was upside down, John and his team acquired 40 companies. Over $1 billion in investment, impacting tens of thousands of employees. Isn't that amazing? John is a winner. And then finally, John is a pirate. John is an alum, class of 93. I'm actually an alum, class of 92. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, absolutely. John is one of us. He is a pirate. He went to high school in Greenville, worked his way through college. Love that about John. Everything you see about John, some of the adjectives: relentless, resiliency, hardworking, passionate. And I love this other thing. He says, never settle. Never settle. That is the definition of a pirate. So John and I were actually at ECU at the same time. We're both starting to get old. John, I hate to tell you, but this coming year is your 30th anniversary in graduating from ECU. 30 years, my friend. I've already passed that. So I'm convinced that John and I used to play some basketball together up when there was a blacktop where the dining hall is on the hill. So I'm convinced we've probably swapped some elbows or two. But hey, it makes you tougher, right? So I love the fact that John embraces resiliency, toughness, mental toughness. That's fantastic. So John and I are going to have a conversation. John, if you would come up and we'll have a conversation, please give him a pirate welcome.
Thank you, Dean.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Should I throw him an elbow now?
That's right. A box out. Oh. All right. So I'm going to take out my ink pen because, like a good professor, when you have a chance to talk to someone who's very successful, you take notes, right? So I would actually encourage others to take out their ink pen, because if you have a chance to learn from someone who's done this much, that's pretty impressive. All right, John, the first question. You ready?
Please.
So John is from Greenville, a pirate grad, class of 93. So the background about John. So enlighten us about your background and how you ended up at ECU.
Yes, before I do that, I hope I cut this on. Hear me okay? All right. Before I answer that, Dean, and thank you very much. It's an honor to be here with everyone today. So you guys still hear me back there? Okay. It's a true honor to be here. I mean, it's one of those things that you never think of this in a lifetime, to be able to come back and speak to this many folks. And look, I'm just like you. I was raised in Eastern North Carolina. I came from relatively a single family home. My mom's here. I didn't have a great father figure in my life. I worked my way through college at Parker's Barbecue. Billy Parker, one of my closest friends. And they have 3 restaurants, by the way. He wanted me to mention that. But Paul Powers, my family, Josh and Beth. Let me get this. All right. Is that better? Is that better? Okay. But I grew up in Eastern North.
Here comes some help.
We're going to move this around. Okay, I think that's better. So, like I said, I'm like most of you here. Question, how many people are from Eastern North Carolina in the room? Wow, a lot. How many went to a small school? A lot. I went to Greenville Christian here. Okay. We'll get these technical difficulties fixed at some point. All right, is that better? All right. So, went to East Carolina. It was, it's kind of by default that I came here. One of the few colleges that I applied to from Greenville. I was hoping to be a basketball player. I grew up with what I call the 3 Bs: Bible, barbecue, and basketball. Those are the three things that were okay. Excuse me.
This will work way better.
Okay, thank you. Let me cut this off. I should have wore a tie like Dean Harris. It probably would have been easier to. But I grew up in North Carolina. The 3 Bs is what I call it: Bible, barbecue, and basketball. We played basketball every day, ate barbecue virtually every day, and went to church 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week. That was my life, and so I didn't really know much other than East Carolina. I didn't apply to any other schools. And so when I went to college, my very first semester, I was like, I knew after watching all these successful business people, I knew I wanted to become a CEO. That was my whole goal in life. And look, you don't have to know that at this point in your career, but if you do, it helps you pursue a passion that ultimately, for me, became fairly successful. So graduated East Carolina. And I should mention that, I played ping pong at Minji's, was it Minji's?
Yeah.
I did all the things that you do every day. But the one thing that I would say that I learned through my college experiences is anytime that someone said I couldn't do something or maybe doubted me, I was like, I'm going to figure out how to do it. And so that little chip on my shoulder has been one of those things that's been always on my shoulder. It said, that's going to drive me to do something more. And so, again, I came from a very humble beginning and fortunately have had some success along the way. But I'll give you a couple lessons around that. Surround yourself with really good people. And again, I have some really good people, family, friends here that really did a lot to help influence me. Some that are not here that wish they could be here. So first lesson that I would encourage you is surround yourself with really good people, both in college, post-college. That did a lot for me. My friends that are here, they were all ambitious, just like I was, all very successful, and that helped me a lot. So graduate from East Carolina, knew I wanted to go into business. I did an internship, of all places, at probably the grungiest place you could do it at, which was a chicken farm. Has anyone ever been in a chicken farm? Has anyone been in a chicken processing plant? Oh my gosh, it is one of the most disgusting things you can be in. But I learned something. I learned how to connect with people that most people didn't want to hire. And that became a very important part of my life later, is how to just talk to people, how to understand what's their DNA. So very quickly realized that chicken processing was not my future. Became a consultant, shocker. And then by the age of 24, through a series of coincidences, I became a president and CEO of a dairy company. So I'm from chicken to dairy. I ran a couple dairy companies and then a plastics business, and then ultimately private equity found me. And I had no idea what private equity was. I didn't know, had no clue what investing and finance, and I went to work for a firm called HIG Capital down in Miami. They manage about $40 billion of assets today. And they said 2 things to me. They said, John, if you're going to be successful, do what you say you're going to do, and you'll have a long career. And I've always prescribed to just, my mom's who's here, she said, live a life of integrity. My friends were the same way. And it goes back to surrounding yourself with the right people. And so I just began to perform, and ultimately ran 7 businesses. And then that culminated into the last one. I worked for another firm called Blackstone. I don't know if anyone's heard of Blackstone, probably the largest, certainly one of the most prestigious private equity firms. And the last deal that I did for them, they said, John, you're one of the top 5% CEOs we've ever seen in Blackstone. They own hundreds of companies. And they said, would you come back and work for us in a variety of capacities? And then I decided, okay, I'd been successful, had made a few bucks, and decided to become a full-time investor. The foundation that East Carolina gave me that I hope you as students will take is learn. Like, really learn. Take all of the experiences that you have. And what Dean Harris says is the networking is so important. How I got to Blackstone, which is an interesting coincidence, is someone that had heard the work that I had done called one of the board members of this company that Blackstone owned and said, the very best person in the country to come run this business is John May. And so they called me, and I told them no. I'm like, I'm not going to move to Indiana and go run a business. I was living in Chicago, having a great time, and ultimately I did for a whole series of events. And probably the best thing that I did, I realized, is like when someone of that caliber, being the Blackstone institution, says, hey, come work for us and be successful, it's one of the best decisions that I personally have made. So the other thing that I want the students to realize is, as you're pursuing your career dreams, like, it doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter your family life, I had no silver spoon, and Dean Harris said it is, you have to work hard. You have to really put a lot of passion in what you do. And I would say the thing that when I look back now, I didn't realize it at the time, but I no longer work. Like, I have a passion, and that passion, and I'll talk a little bit about my company in a moment, is I was up at 5 a.m. this morning, not because I had to, but it's what I do. I love what I do, and my wife will tell you I work at weird hours. I work till late in the night, and find what your passion is, because, and that doesn't have to be business. It could be a variety of walks of life that you pursue. But that's what's, when you find that passion, it's no longer a job, and that's really what I think was the biggest takeaway for me is, and I'll say this, after being a CEO 7 times. I absolutely hated being a CEO. And people are like, you're one of the best at this. And I was like, that isn't the passion that I had. My passion was really buying companies, investing in people, being on the board, talking to institutional investors, talking about strategy. It wasn't, running a business. And so I'll talk a little bit about that journey. But those are a couple of lessons that I would just encourage you is make sure you network, really put a lot of passion, find a passion, work hard at it. And when you do that, it's not a job. It becomes your life's work. And so I've been fortunate that I've been able to find that.
Fantastic. Thank you, John. So some fun facts. So in between the questions, I'm going to add some fun facts. So John is actually a sommelier, level 1, and John owns a race car. So if you're a student, after this is over, that's a really good question to say, hey, John, can you tell me some more about this race car? But we'll save that question. So, John, you talked about how you transitioned from a CEO to more of an investor with the company. Look up CORE Industrial. Love the acronym. Collaborate, outperformance, respect, ethics. I love, in particular, outperformance. So as you made this transition from CEO to investor, explain that process, if you would.
Yeah, it's an interesting journey. As I mentioned, I was very successful as a CEO. Built up a good net worth. Was thinking about semi-retiring. Met my wife. And here's the other key lesson: the most single important decision that you can make is your spouse and finding the right spouse. 100%. And so I'll give you my wife and my son. If you hear some chatter, it's my little son watching videos. Feel free to come say hi to Ethan and Maggie. But single best decision. So I wasn't exactly sure. I was like, what am I going to do? I didn't necessarily have to work. And I went to my wife. I said, look, I really think I should start a private equity firm. Like, I spent almost 20 years in this institutional world. I still have a long way to go. We hadn't had a family yet. And then ultimately how that process came about is I talked to a lot of wealth managers about managing my wealth, and I was like, I get way better returns on the companies that I've operated and indirectly owned. And so I put the thesis together for what's now Core Industrial Partners in 2016. And my conviction it wasn't about being an investor. It was to be the very best industrial manager in the lower middle market. And fast forward 6 years today, our first fund is the #1 fund in the world by every metric that's out there. We just sold a company last week, well over 100% IRR. Hopefully everyone knows what IRR is in this room, being a business student and graduate. And when I look back, like that passion is what really drove me to really finding what I wanted to do for the second chapter of my life. And I realized I wasn't happy being a CEO. I was more happy being an investor. And so as a result of that, I went to my wife. I said, Maggie, I'm going to step away from being a CEO, making millions of dollars a year. I'm going to take our net worth. I'm going to put it at risk. I'm going to not take a salary for I have no idea how long, and I don't know if this is going to work. That was my message to her, and we hadn't even gotten married yet. And so my wife's, I'm sure she's like, okay, what have I got myself into? Could not have been more supportive. She said, if that's your dream, go for it. And I did it, and fortunately it's worked out. You fast forward to today, $1 billion of assets under management, best fund in the world. I've taken companies public. I never thought 20, 30 years ago I'd be the largest shareholder in a public company. This is all public knowledge. We took public for $1.5 billion. Buy 40 companies, sell multiple companies. And I just started like most of you in this room, small town. Wasn't exactly sure, other than I wanted to be a CEO, what that meant. But there's a couple key lessons that I would encourage to the audience. As Ethan calls my name, so sorry about that. But one is the person that you choose to spend your life with is the single most important decision that you make. Secondly is have a personal set of core values. So we have family values. I have my own core values. Define who's that person going to be and live to those values. Part of some of my personal values is live a life of integrity, be transparent, live a life of abundance, give back. We talk about the cancer work that I've done. I spent 15 years co-founded a cancer organization. It's now the world's largest one-on-one cancer support organization. Stepped away to come back and give to the university. Now on the first on the foundation board. Dibba somehow got me to be on the investment committee, and then he calls me one day and says, you have no choice, you're going to be the investment chair. I'm like, okay. Not exactly that sequence, but when you have success at any level, find a way to give back. And the more success that you have, you can give money, but sometimes it's even more prolific to give your time. And that's what I've chosen to do. I used to give a lot of money to causes, still do, but to really make a tangible difference is to then give back of your time, which is part of why I'm so excited to be here today. I am humbled to be here. I don't like to talk about my success. You won't find a lot of things written on my firm and our company, but this is one of those situations where everyone in this room has the ability to be successful. Every single person. Pursue your passion, work hard at it, make the right decisions in life. And one of the things that, I look back now, and I'll give you a little bit more about our firm. I have Harvard MBAs that work for me. I have former Fortune's 50 CEOs. A gentleman that ran Chrysler and Home Depot works for me. I've got tens of thousands of employees. Billions upon billions of revenue across our portfolio. Those things are great as statistics, but it really comes down to people. It comes down to the network. Comes down to reputation, comes down to your values. And so I appreciate you mentioning the core values. So the acronym CORE really came from the values. And when my partners and I came together, the first thing we did is said, we need to identify who we're going to be, going back to those values. And as Dean Harris said, it's collaboration, outperformance. We work really hard, my team, but they're all motivated by the same passion. But we do it the right way. We're respectful and ethical. And not everyone in my industry, there's a couple people here that are in this industry, will tell you that, there's sharp elbows. There's, it's not necessarily an easy industry, but if you do it the right way, that reputation grows over time. And now I have family businesses and entrepreneurs that come to me all the time and say, I want to partner with you. I want to sell my business to you. And so I don't even have to go look for companies in many cases. They come to us because of that reputation. And then the other thing that I would mention is, especially in today's world, social media, you really want to protect your social media. And it's funny because when I hire people, we look at the pedigrees, and they have to be the best of the best. I mean, they have to have the highest GPA. They have to have 4.0s in college, like all of us. Matter of fact, I probably couldn't hire myself, to be honest. I think I may have had a 4.0 in my major, but not in all my classes. But what we typically do, it's all about referencing, connections, and then we look a lot at people's social media. How do they act on Instagram? I'm not on Facebook, but what's their Facebook like? And so the little things that you do today can 10, 20, 30 years from now impacts you. So I really encourage you to make sure it's the network and the social media. There's a CEO that we were going to hire for one of our companies, and we found 10 years ago, he was not representing himself on social media very well on a site that doesn't exist. We're like, we can't have that in our business. Like, we expect the very best of what we do across all of our employees and all the CEOs that run our companies. So that's another thing because social media is much more prevalent. It wasn't even in existence. I'm too old for that when I graduated. So just please protect your social media and your reputation, because that will go a long way for you.
Thanks, John. Fun fact, John is a sports fanatic. Now, John and I have some of the same friends from college. Now, in a quick conversation with some of the friends, he's never met a jump shot he will not take. I think once he got past half court, he was open. So before Steph Curry, there was John May.
Apologize the technical difficulties here. That is very true. I have some friends in the front row that will attest and probably heckle me to that. I think, what's the old adage? You miss every shot you don't take. And so that was it's one of those things that I was fortunate to have a lot of confidence in myself, even at a young age. Another key lesson: have a lot of confidence. It'll go a long way.
Absolutely.
And the race car thing, I did not know that was going to get brought up, much to my wife's chagrin. But it's one of those few things in life that the only thing you can focus on is how not to crash your car. You're going 150 miles an hour down the track for a quarter mile, and then you have to hit the brakes. But find, my message of that is, find some passions. Like, it's not all about work. Have some passions in your life. Be balanced. And make them safe passions for the most part. But find some passions in your life. Create a network. And that's one of the things that when I look back, I've worked really hard for a long time. And sometimes I missed out on things. And you have to make some sacrifices. But find the 1, 2, 3 things that you really enjoy, and take that same passion that you're going to put into your career, put those into your passions as well.
So, John, 30 years out of college now. You've been in the industry for a long time. You've seen a lot of ups and downs. What are the lessons learned, the secret sauce? How do you become successful in industry?
And there's a lot to that. I would say on the business side, be prepared. Always be prepared. I mentioned I worked in the chicken factory, which, again, crazy time. I wore a tie to every day I worked in that chicken factory. Everyone's like, why are you wearing a tie? Because I was like, I'm going to be a CEO one day. At the time, I was going to be the CEO of the chicken factory. Obviously, became CEO of some other different businesses. But be prepared. Always present yourself in a way that you're going to be what you want to be, even if you're not there yet. Some other things is study, read. I'm now a full-time investor. I taught myself how to do M&A transactions. I didn't go to an Ivy League school. I didn't go to an investment banking. I didn't work for a financial services firm. I taught myself. I read a lot of books. And I spent a lot of time, just practically understanding how the process worked. And now our funds are amongst our first fund is the best in the world, by every database. But it was all self-taught. Now, I surrounded myself with a lot of really good people, and I think that's the key lesson learned now that I'm a full-time investor. I don't run our businesses. I delegate most things down. As I hire the very best people. I try to overcompensate them so that they're quite happy, and we're aligned on the passion. But I would say, at this stage of your life, if you don't know what you want to do, experiment a little bit. Try a couple different things. But find the thing that you can be the best at, and then put all your energy and effort into it. Surround yourself with the right group of people to go do that.
Fantastic. So I love the fact that John was very clear in saying, look, that of everything I've accomplished, of everything I've done, it's really about faith, family, and friends. That says a lot about who John is. So, John, you've talked about your family, but explain the importance of having that family in place to keep you grounded and support you.
Yeah, that's I'm 51 years old now. It's a long time. You learn a lot in 30 years. And the first thing is, this is not to be a religious discussion, but whatever your faith is in, like, really have that faith and believe in it. It becomes a backbone for you, especially in hard times. And if you don't have one, I would encourage you to find one. Secondly, and it goes back to, and I mentioned, the best decision I made was marry my wife. Great group of friends, a great mom. Like, couldn't choose my mom, could choose my friends and my wife, fortunately. But that family network gives you the courage to go do things that maybe you didn't know you could do. Allows you to take the risk. Like, I took a huge risk, and my poor wife, we weren't even married yet. She's like, I'm sure she still shakes her head at that time, but we're fortunate that it's all worked out. But surround yourself with people that are going to love you, that will allow you to pursue your dreams. Usually it's your family. That's where it starts with. And then wrap other networks around that. That's another, I would say, key lesson learned. Expand the network. I thought it was a great challenge. Feel free to LinkedIn me, but go out into the LinkedIn, go into your peer network, because that's where most of the opportunities will come from. Not from job postings, but someone refers you to someone. Someone knows your reputation. You've done something really great at something, but that courage and that ability to take the risk, for me, started with my family and the support from my family and the encouragement from my family and always believed in me. Maybe when others didn't, always felt like my family was always there for me.
Fantastic. So my final question, and then we're going to open it up for questions from the audience. And John, my compliments, because I see people taking notes. That is a major compliment. So
I think
well done.
I think the fact that you guys did not skip this and actually dressed up. I don't know this conference was even in existence when I was in college, but I won't say how many classes I may have skipped on a Wednesday morning. So glad that everyone showed up today.
So, yeah, you guys look sharp. Fantastic. And I appreciate the fact you're taking notes. Wonderful job. So, John, you started to talk about this, but advice for those in the room, especially those who are about to graduate. What's some words of advice?
Yeah, I think the first thing is know who you are. Like, know what you want. If you don't know what you want, go pursue different opportunities. So quick little background. So I graduated with a bachelor's of business. I had two different concentrations. So I remember I mentioned I did the chicken factory, and then I did a short stint in MIS, Management Information Systems. And I realized that was not for me. Very quickly, I was not smart enough, nor did I have the patience to sit in front of a computer all day and code. And then I went into consulting thereafter. And so I would just encourage you to, like, if you don't know what you want to do, go try things and you'll learn. If you do know what you want to do, go find the very best people, company to go do it for, and don't let them tell you no. Like, so my consulting job that I got, I literally went to them and said, I will come work for free. That's what I told them. I was like, I want to go run a company. I thought consulting was the easiest path for me. And this was a boutique consulting firm that no one in this room's ever heard of. And I begged my way into that consulting firm. And I basically said, look, I know I'm going to win at this. If I just get that small chance, I'm going to win. And I would say the other thing people talk about the destination and the journey. I will say personally for me, it's all about the journey. There is no destination. Like, every day, like, I love to grind. I love to, as I mentioned, I'll get up at 5 a.m. I worked late last night. Like, I love that grind every day. Part of it's because it's what I love to do. and a lot of people rely on me, but it's also setting an example for all the constituents that I come in contact with. But make it be the journey and not the destination. And the thing about winning and the thing about getting the next job or hitting the game-winning jump shot, it doesn't respect you. It's like you have to keep it. You're not always going to win. You're not always going to get the job that you want. But if you keep focused on the journey and not the destination, you will then win over time. And that's the one thing that I would encourage you. And I would spend at this point in your life, I would read a lot of books. I would watch a lot of podcasts. I'd talk to as many successful people that you can, because that's where you're going to learn. You're going to understand the experiences. You're going to take their applications, and it's going to help form you as you enter into the workforce. And the more you can do that, the more knowledge you can gain, the more wisdom you will get when you get into that particular opportunity and position. So there's the couple of the key things that I would do. The other thing is, after you graduate, as quickly as you can, use the ECU network. I mean, this is an amazing group of people. And I want to say, Dean Harris, I come across, as I mentioned, a lot of very successful people. This university, with Dean Harris, the chancellor, other people sitting here, we have some of the, not just the best people at what they do, but some of the very best people in the country. Like Dean Harris could run one of my companies. Chancellor could run one of my companies. These are like really great people. Leverage them, leverage the network, but give back, because that giving back, it will bring you a lot of fulfillment, but you'll find the connectivity in such a successful university that is really growing. It's funny, I talk to, I have a lot of investors, and I'm like, I'm also an LP. So not only I'm a general partner, I'm also a limited partner, which means I help allocate the university's capital, hopefully very successfully, on top of that. But it's funny, I talk about East Carolina, and most people are like, I've heard of that. I was like, do you realize we have 28,000 students here? And as I've become this ambassador in the institutional world about this university, and it's amazing when you begin to hear, they're like, oh, I heard someone that went there, or they did this. Like, leverage that network, and not just in North Carolina, but outside of North Carolina. It's amazing. There's a successful Milwaukee private equity investor I just met recently. Like, there's a lot of interesting people doing interesting things. I didn't know how to leverage that when I came out of school, but use that. Dr. Westmoreland, like on the career path side, like leverage the people in this university. They want to give to you to help you be successful.
Fantastic. Thank you, John. In our college, 3 words are very important. We build leaders. Great example of a very successful leader investor. So now I want to turn the floor over to get some questions from the audience. Anybody excited to ask a question to John? If you would, raise your hand, and there's mics in the audience. Jonathan.
If there was one thing you could tell your younger self, what would it be?
Good question. I think really make sure that I had the right perspective of life. There are things that I've had some imbalance where I just overworked many times and got on the verge of burnout and realized that I needed to have a little bit more balance. And so I would say having really good perspective is the thing that I would, when I look back, and I'm still not the best at it, I got to say. And part of this is this drive to win and be successful. And sometimes you have to temper that with some balance and perspective. I have so many things going through my brain. I wake up really early and my brain's just go, go, go. And sometimes you have to shut that down. And I think that perspective and that balance is something that makes you actually better than just the everyday drive and the everyday grind.
Next question.
What books impacted your life the most, and how did it impact your life?
I knew someone was going to ask that question, because as I think you've heard, I was a pretty terrible basketball player growing up. Had a mean elbow and never took would shoot a lot. But I prescribed to a lot of coaching books. So, and please don't take this the wrong way, but Coach K I thought was a great leader. I know they're down the road. Pat Summitt's books, Pat Riley, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, the books that I read recently, Tim Grover, who was the trainer for Kobe and MJ, a lot of biographies of very successful people in all walks of life, technology, real estate, some of the old books, Winston Churchill, some of the great business leaders, Patton, et cetera. I read the biographies and the coaching books, and I've probably read, probably by the time I was 30, I probably had read 1,000 books. I mean, and so that helped frame leadership style, how other people did it. I read M&A, Mergers and Acquisitions for Dummies, when I was 23. That was maybe the beginning of my investing experience. But all of those type of books is really what helped shape my life.
Next question. Up front.
This is more so a personal question, but could we talk after this? Because I have a lot of revolutionary thoughts that I think you might understand me with, and I don't want to cause a little ruckus in the middle of this.
I'll tell you what I'm happy to do is I have 2 assistants now, one for my work life and now one for my personal life. I think that's how it's delineated. What we'll do, and I'll do it through the university, is we'll set up a Zoom forum where anyone that wants to come and talk more, have ideas, we'll set something up in the next week or 2, and everyone's invited that wants to participate. Anyone that participates, I will buy a Parker's barbecue sandwich. So use the John May code. Mr. Parker's right here. But we'll set something up because I want to hear your ideas, especially if there's anything industrial related. I definitely, and technology, that's just where we spend most of our time. But I'll work something with the dean and we'll set something up.
Next question.
So I had a epiphany when I was younger that said that I thought I don't want to do just one thing, I want to do everything. And so over the years, I've learned a lot of skills, and I am now getting to a point where I want to learn how to monetize those skills. Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, I would say one thing that's really hard to do is if you're trying to monetize everything, that's difficult. It's difficult to be the master of a lot of different things. Unless you have a really big team and you have a really big balance sheet to go do it. I would start with the one thing, make that really successful, monetize that, and then I would then cascade from that monetization. When you spread yourself too thin or you have too many different focuses, it becomes really difficult to become really good at one thing. Once you're really good at one thing, you can monetize that one thing, then anyone will then give you capital to go do that. So it's funny, I heard a quote not too long ago. A strategy is not a strategy until you're willing to turn away capital. And so right now I'm raising $1 billion and I'm now raising a new strategy and then I'm raising another strategy and I'm turning away the biggest investors in the world. I turned down last week 2 big insurance companies, multiple pensions in the UK, the biggest consultant. When you get to that point where you've been really good at one thing, people will come to you to give you capital, and then you have the ability to go and cascade that into multiple things. So I would master the one thing you're best at, and then use that as leverage to go and do other things.
Next question.
Hi, I was just wondering if when you're considering hiring somebody, would it be considered a red flag if there wasn't any social media to find?
No, actually, we personally don't. We kind of prefer it in our world. We're in the finance world where reputation means so much to what we do. And I'll take the private equity industry. We take institutional capital from foundations, not East Carolina, but like ECU, from some of the most influential, reputable institutions. They never want to be attached to someone that has a negative bias or a reputational issue. And so we personally see that as positive in many cases. Now, I think there's some occupations where you need to have that social media presence. And there's some that it's like the fundamental what you do, but not necessarily in the finance world for what we do. But if you do have that, make it be the best, look right, make it be positive. And most of the companies and or employees that we have some social media presence. When they come onto our platform, we encourage them to just make it be the best and make sure it's nondescript, no political, religious bias, but the best at what they do.
So I think we have time for one more question.
Okay, so the question I have is, on the journey to the top is never going to be easy. Sometimes you're going to make mistakes and dwell on them and then find yourself alone. What did you tell yourself and or do to help find the motivation to just move forward?
Yeah, and I think Dean Harris said this, resiliency goes a long way. So how do you become resilient? Well, first is, for me, it started with faith and family. That was where it started. I never, sometimes you second guess yourself, but that the faith and family was a big cornerstone. I think the second thing is when you're passionate about something, you spend all your time trying to figure out what's the best way to be successful at it. What are all of the different angles around it? What are all the inputs so that I can understand the outputs from that? And then ultimately, be prepared, because you don't always know when the opportunity is going to happen. You don't always know when the situation's going to arise, and sometimes you just have to step into it. But you're going to fail. I failed a lot of times. You're going to fail, but you learn from that. You take that failure and you make that better. You make yourself better. You make your circumstance better. You make your perspective better. Especially coming out of college, it's okay to have some failures. Learn from them, apply them, gain perspective from them, and then make sure you don't do it again. I would say that's the big thing is when you learn from it, don't repeat that same mistake. It's like our CEOs and our businesses. They may have a bad quarter and they say they're going to fix that. They do the same thing the next quarter. Guess what? They're probably not the CEO of that company the next quarter. But that's my encouragement is allow yourself to fail. Have enough confidence to take the risk to allow yourself to fail, but then make sure you learn from it, grow from it. And again, that's where you surround yourself with people that are going to love you and support you, that you're going to then become successful.
So the concept of grit, pirate grit, it is something that we talk about, embrace, but it's actually something that's true. And this right here is a great example. So if you would, join me in thanking John.
Again, I just want to say it's been an honor today. Thank you, everyone. And Dean Harris, it's been a pleasure.
I've got something on behalf of the college for you. I'm going to put that right there. And I need everyone's help, right? We talked about social media. I'm going to get Michael Rudd to come up here, and we want to do a selfie with you guys as the backdrop. Is that okay? Everybody supportive? All right. And we'll try not to fall off stage, right? Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Who's our spotter over here to make sure we don't? Okay, this right here. All right, John, this is our pirate sign. John, thank you so much. Absolutely, brother. More, come on. There you go. Well done, well done. Heck of a way to get the conference started. Remember, for our students, you're not here to watch, you're here to participate. Very important. All the concurrent sessions are on this floor. There's a 10 o'clock, an 11 o'clock, and a 12 o'clock. There is a reception starting at 12:45. Love to have you come back. Thank you so much, and great job, John.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Let's go, Pirates.